Okay. And we are live. So I'm going to wait a second here. Printing out something because I'm running a little behind today because I ran late because I had the cutest client that I'm going to post a picture of. And welcome to Conscious Mind Tripping with Audrey Newmont. Tonight is a very special night. I see that there is somebody on here because I see a little eyeball, and it's not just me. So we're going to get started. I want to start by saying what a good time we had the other night with Golden Arrow and Merlin here in the house. We had a great audience, a lot of fun people, really kind, wonderful people, and Merlin and Golden Arrow were on fire. And some of the things that they were sharing were just profound. And one of, I think, the most important things that they were saying is how important it is in this moment for us all to be meditating, getting quiet, getting still, getting chill. Hey, Mr. Newmont. So nice to have you join me here. It's always fun to not be all by myself on this thing. I'm doing something new tonight. I've got my little computer, my regular portable computer and my big computer, and they're right next to each other. So it's a new setup. And I'm printing that picture that you just sent to me. So one of the things that Merlin said in particular was so very profound that I'm going to make a copy of it tomorrow and put it on our Newmont Center Facebook page, because what they said, even Golden Arrow was like, well said, Merlin. And it was one of those things where it's like, wow, that is pretty deep, and it is, I think, very important. So they were talking a bit about what's going on here. They were giving a little bit of predictions about what's happening and what is to be coming. And to be clear, a lot of what's coming is going to be excellent. It's going to be great. So I think it's important to have us all really be feeling good about the future, because for a lot of people right now, they're looking at what's happening and they're feeling quite a lot of stress, anxiety, worry, and understandably so. It's a time of massive turmoil, which is why I wanted to be talking about what I'm talking about tonight, because I think it's such a big minute that we need all of our tools. So with that being said, I'm still getting myself adjusted here. With that being said, I also want to talk about another thing that's coming up. You have almost a month, and I have started a book club, and it's going to be, the book is by Matt Haig, and it's called The Midnight Library. And some of the things that Golden Arrow and Merlin were talking about were right in alignment with this book. So it was pretty perfect that that conversation was happening. So what I'm going to be doing is I want you all to take some time, you had a whole month, and read the book, or do what I did and listen to it on Audible. And it's one of those books, it's a novel, but it's also, let's just say it's very deep, it's profound, and it'll give you a new perspective on life. I've had a few of my clients read it, and they have been just wowed by it, and definitely had some good insights for their own life to change their perception. Remember, the third button is perspective, perception. So whatever it is that we do in our life, we want to own the intention, the attention, and that perception. And I think perception is one of those things that can change through reading a book, reading somebody else's story or knowing somebody else's story, which is why I tell my stories all the time. And I tell stories about my clients, because it's a good way to look at your life through somebody else's life. We've all had very similar things happen. We've had similar emotions. Is that my Becca-licious on there? Becca-licious. Hello. So good to see you here with me. This is fun. I like having you guys join me. So the other thing is a little bit of announcements. Next week, we are going to be having, I believe, Kimberly Bennett on with our mainstream metaphysics show. So if you're having a moment with all of the health issues that are going on, she is our doctor and she is amazing. And we have so many people that we know that are going to her now and really changing their health. And I'm going to let her tell you what she does and why it's so important. So she's going to be our guest on Mainstream Metaphysics, and I'm beyond excited to have her join us. Audie's in the house. Hi, Audie. Oh, no, she's going to be on August 17th. So, Nick, who are we having on next week? Carmen Licious and Mary Lee Licious are in the house, too. Carmen, you do make me laugh. I like that. So maybe we'll bring Carmen on with me next week. We can laugh together on Mainstream Metaphysics. Or maybe bring the both of you on with Miss Mary Lee Licious. Anyway, enough of the silliness. Another thing that's going to be coming up at the beginning of September, so you have a month to think about it. Nick and I are going to be doing our workshop again on relationships. It's going to be a full day workshop. It's going to be on September the 3rd, and it's going to be whatever the relationship, whether it is there a lot of noise going on from my computer? Maybe that'll help. It's going to be with relationships, whether it's your love relationships or your business, your family, anybody that you're having relationships with. It's going to be helping to own better communication in the relationship, better fun in the relationship, better romance, to take it to the next level. Or if you don't have a relationship, how to create one. So it's a full round the house with relationships on September the 3rd. And then I'm having that visioning and mind mapping workshop that is coming up on. You're going to have to look on newmontcenter.com because I've had too many things going on. I don't remember the date on that one. newmontcenter.com, and you can go into the calendar page and you can see it for yourself there. I think that's all the announcements. So now I want to get into the meat of the matter today. And today's going to be one of those days that I'm just going to get down to it. So for some of you that maybe have seen me in action, whether in a workshop or in session, it's going to be like a little version of that, but more geared towards everybody, because we're in a moment right now that is massively important in the world. And it's important for us all to own our critical thinking. And I got to thinking about critical thinking. And I'm going to just start by saying what Nicholas and I do. One of our things, I've got this on my notepad. I'm showing my clients all the time. And as Bryce would say, I'm always tapping on it. So a lot of the time I'm talking about the subconscious mind. And that's kind of the program. So if we were a computer, it would be that part of our program that we take on, like from 0 to 8 or through experiences. And then that in the subconscious area of our mind is about 90% of what we do every day. And most of the time, it's very unconscious. We're not thinking about it. We're not aware. We're just in doing. We're just being. And the way that I get people to recognize what their unconscious beliefs are that are not working for them is I have them pay attention to when they're feeling what I call fear feelings. So if they're angry, if they're frustrated, if they're worried, any of those feelings that are uncomfortable, that's where they're loitering. So we go about a business of finding them and recognizing them, transforming them into a more conscious, this is what I want to do. So I don't talk about this part as much, but this area of the mind, the critical mind, we developed that between the ages of 0 and 8 years old. And I think for a lot of the time, I have a tendency to kind of skip over it and not really go into enough depth about it. And I was thinking about that recently, and I was going back to one of my favorite authors, who is Napoleon Hill. And he was back in like 1936, 38. He wrote one of the best-selling books of all time, which was Think and Grow Rich. And Some of my favorite books of his were Outwitting the Devil. Such a good book. Again, you can read that one on Audible, and it's fantastic. But he said way back then, and I'm sure he wasn't even the first to say it, but in our schools, in our education, we have a tendency to teach children to memorize stuff and to take tests. And as I've had 3 kids that have gone through school, I have watched them. They have to learn a certain way and they have to memorize. And there's not a lot of critical thinking. It's not where they're learning to think, they're learning what they're supposed to be taught. And when you're looking at critical thinking, it's when you're doing analysis, when you're interpreting things, when you're looking for explanations of what's going on. It's for in this office when we're doing that critical thinking, it's about self-realization. Understanding who we are, understanding those unconscious beliefs that we all have and why it's so detrimental. It's like our lives aren't going the way that we want it to go. It's also when you're doing critical thinking, you're being more open-minded. So you're available to look at new information. You're available to, I never thought of that before. Or like in my life, many times people will say something and I'm like, no, 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 no. And then one day I'll hear it different and I'm like, oh, my mind just opened and I'm able to take in new information. I'm able to use that critical thinking to say, maybe everything that I've learned isn't exactly as it should have been, which in my case, there was a lot of that. And then it's also about problem solving. So getting to that problem solving part, as Nick would know, he and I have talked about it many times. I've had many clients over the years, and this is why I do what I do. I've had many clients over the years. They'll come in and they'll be like, oh God, I just had the worst day. I really need you to hypnotize me today. And I need you to fix this. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I do not want to be in a position where I'm responsible for fixing anybody, which is why I came up with the tools that I came up with. It's like, use these and fix yourself. It's not my job. My job is to be your private investigator and to show you new things and to be compassionate with you and be understanding and help you to see your truth, which is for all of us amazing. We have great opportunities to live a really amazing life. And what I've seen, and Nick, I know you've seen this over the years, is like when we're working with people, we all get stuck sometimes in the challenges of the life and we're not using our critical thinking. Hold on, I'm going to have a little sip. So, why is the critical thinking so important right now? It's because what I'm seeing and I'm actually experiencing, I've got some things in my own life that I'm having to work through, as is everybody in this moment, because we're all kind of at the effect of what's going on in the world. And unless you've been living in a rock, under a rock, then you're probably dealing with some of it yourself. And one of those things is understanding and having clarity on what's going on with our health, because there's so many different stories out there. And for me personally, I've been looking at this and I have to make really strong decisions with regard to it. So I got to thinking, doing critical thinking, and I started looking online and looking at a wide variety of information. And I want to back this up a little bit because it's super important to really understand when we are not in critical thinking and we're living in fear. Like there's a lot of people, a lot of us that have had people that have been very challenged with either COVID itself and being ill, or with someone who has had a procedure, they have been inoculated and they have had serious health issues from that. So there's all these different stories that you're looking at across the board of people who have been infected in various ways from all of this. And so I was watching, the mainstream news the other day. And as I was watching it, because I don't usually, it just came on while I was doing the dishes. So I thought, oh, you know what? I need to see what they're saying there as well, because I want to look at all these different versions of the news. Oh, hi, Julie. I'm just realizing I have to scroll up. Oh, there's a whole bunch going on in here. Julie, Nick, Brandon's here in the house. Julie, I'm so glad you're here. And it was so good to see you, little name on the thing the other night. The sentient healing is happening in September 13th. Brandon, that's Audie, is his wife. Oh, good, Maria, you're joining us with the book club. All right, so I'm going to have to keep scrolling down here. All right, so many people don't understand fear-based thinking. Fear needs to be explained. I'll get to that and then I'll go back to where I was. So when we're talking about fear-based thinking, to get back into that a little bit and having a little bit more explanation, when we're looking at this, the unconscious, these are the things that we're unaware that we're unaware. So when people are angry, when you're frustrated, when you are anxious, when you're worried, those are all what I call fear feelings. It's false evidence appearing real. So it's that part of us where it's like, I bring it back to the car analogy. So it's like we have the driver that is our soul. It's the person that's here right now. And that person is either driving consciously or unconsciously. And if we're driving unconsciously, here's the analogy, it's the little kid version of us that's in the back seat. So it's like that kid that took on beliefs between 0 and 8, or they had experiences along the way that were like, I don't know, for myself in particular, one of the greatest stories of it was when I had that peeping Tom and they were looking in my window and I was this young girl and I was terrified. And my stepfather didn't find him, but he found a brick that he put under my window. So then he comes back in the house and he says, he's gone, go back to sleep. So I was terrified, and it's locked and loaded now in my belief systems. It's locked and loaded in this part of me that I'm just not aware of. So something came up in my life and it came out, and I was like, I went into a real strong moment of panic, anxiety, stress. My daughter was changing in her room. And it's like, what the heck is this? And she even looked at me and she's like, Mom, you know what? You're overreacting. So the next day I had to sit down and look at, why would I do that? It's not who I am. So I'm looking at it. Is this in my 0 to 8? Is this in the program, or is this through some experience? And in that process, I'm allowing whatever this is to be brought to my conscious awareness. And I remembered that what happened to me with this guy staring at me in my window. So when we have these moments, and I work with people all the time, it's like people with anxiety is a huge one right now. I was just working with somebody today and really understanding it's not who they are, it's some experiences that happen that were pretty traumatic along the way. And they come out in a form of anxiety. So it's like the kid in the back seat, they're going, hey, this doesn't feel comfortable. This is not good at all. I don't like this. And we're like, well, I don't even understand what's going on. So when you're the adult in the front seat and you're doing the critical thinking, there's a part of it where you stop and you're like, what is this? So you're questioning and you're asking yourself, what is this? What is causing me to feel this anxiety? It's not who I am. It's through some unconscious stuff. So I want to bring the unconscious stuff to the surface so that I can see it. So sometimes it actually is, I'm afraid. And sometimes it's all of the other things that I call fear feelings. So I'm hoping that that makes it a bit more clear, because in this moment, there are a lot of people with a lot of fear going on. And I want to get to the other part of what that looks like. So when I'm talking about what's happening in the world right now, there are all these different stories. So back to the story of me watching the news. I'm watching what's happening on the news and I'm thinking, wow, they're not talking about any of the stuff that I'm looking at. They're not talking about all of the hundreds of thousands of people who are across the globe protesting. And they're not talking about these people that are having seriously bad effects from taking that thing. They're not talking about some of the other aspects of this. They're just talking about you need to do this to protect whoever. They're not talking about there's a lot of people that have actually done that who have gotten it and who have actually passed away. And I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking it's very interesting that I can look at this. And so I'm doing that part of critical thinking. I've been doing it since this thing started. I've been looking at a wide variety of news because for me, when this whole thing started, I was like, something doesn't feel right. So in your own life, if there is this undercurrent of something doesn't feel right, it's really important to look at I need to get to the bottom of it so that I feel complete. Like some things don't feel right for me. And I'll look at various avenues and I'll find this thing. All right, this feels right. This is where I can land. This is where I can own my conscious thinking. And I'm looking at it with logic, with reason, deduction. And I'm owning that conscious choice that I choose, not something that's put upon me. And that's really important in this moment right now because there is a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of different people who have whatever the thing is. So there's another part of it where whatever it is that you choose, it has to be right for yourself, and you have to live with what's right for you. And for anybody else, if whoever's making their choices, I look at them and it's like, it's fine. You do what's right for you. But we can't come from a place of fear around any of it. And I think that is one of the biggest things that I'm going to say right now. So, with that element of fear, there's another part of all of this. And it's one of these words that I've been saying for a long time with regard to this. And I'm going to say, there's a part of it where it's very emotional for me because there is so much that's happening in this moment. And this thing that I'm about to say, it's a big deal. And it's a key word, and it's cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. It basically means that there are these things that we just can't believe. We look at it and it's like, I'll give you an example. I was telling somebody years ago, hey, you know what? I think these things are happening. And I was pretty sure that they were happening. The things that happen in the sky, the toxins. And to be clear, I have been at the effect of them and I know that it's there. And I was telling this to somebody and they looked at me and they literally had like pity in their eyes. And they said, oh, Audrey, the government wouldn't do that to us. And it's like, I thought about it and it's like, well, I don't know who's doing it. I don't know exactly what it's all about, but I know it's happening. Just like I know, and this is my story, about 3 years ago, now it's closer to 4 years now, I got super sick and I didn't know why. And thank God for Jeff Sherman and Gary Stewart. And I started looking and understanding because I had my own cognitive dissonance going on. Certainly everything I eat is fine. What? And everything I've been doing is fine. That's ridiculous. You know, it's whatever. But then I started to understand that the food that I was eating was literally poisoning my body. And I started looking at what glyphosate is. Glyphosate has been banned in other countries, and our government allows it. Why is that? I don't know, but I know it's happening. And they're in a process right now where they're letting go of, yes, God bless Jeff. He saved my life, literally. But I had to have that awareness of what I was doing. I had to get past my own cognitive dissonance and had to really step back and not be afraid and look at it and say, oh, I get it. So that began a very 4-year journey at this point of clearing out the toxins and owning the health of my body, making conscious choices, not eating just anything. Like I really used to like Cheez-Its. It's like eating cardboard. So I had to really own my critical thinking and step back and look at, there's a reason why my body keeps getting bigger and bigger. There's a reason why these things are happening. So I had to own, this isn't just menopause. This isn't just me getting old. This is something that is happening to my body. And then I started to look at all these different things that Gary and I and Jeff, we put on a workshop called GMOs, Toxins, and Solutions. And it was a really big eye-opener. It was a really big awareness. So the reason why it is so important to really own what cognitive dissonance is there are so many things that are happening that I've been looking at for a year and a half now. Is it a year and a half already? Probably, maybe longer. I don't know. But I have gone down and looked at a whole bunch of things that I couldn't believe. And maybe some of them are not true, but they're not all not true. So you're not going to see any of these things on the regular news. There's no reason for them to show that to you. There's no reason for them to want you to see that. They have an agenda. It's just what it is. So when I'm talking about cognitive dissonance, there's that part where you're saying, you know what? I want to be conscious. I want to be aware. I want to look at things with critical thinking. I just don't want to be fed information anymore. When we're being fed information, it's an agenda. There's actually, within the mainstream news, you can go to Project Veritas. They're proving it up one end and down the other. There's a lot of what's called propaganda out there. I'm not saying that it's all propaganda. I'm not saying that it's all wrong. I'm not saying that it's all bad. I'm just saying that it's not the complete story. I used to love, believe it or not, this is an admittance, I used to love to watch CNN, especially Chris Cuomo, and I'd be like, I like him. He says the facts. And then I started digging because something felt wrong and I was doing critical thinking. And I was like, something doesn't feel right here. So I start looking and then I start realizing, oh, he's giving the facts that they want us to know, but it's not all true. And it's not all the facts. So it's really important to step back and trust that gut instinct that you have. Trust your intuition. Trust that part of you that says something's not adding up here. Something's not right. They say we should wear masks, then we don't have to wear masks. Then the science is saying that it helps, but the other science, a lot of it is saying that they don't. What's the true story here? So what would be real? So if we're just seeing it on the news said absolutely wear masks. After Fauci had said at the beginning, oh, you don't wear masks. So what's true? What's real? You go digging, look for information, look at all different sorts of information. There's all this stuff out there. And you have to find your own truth. You have to find what's right for you and not be judging what's right for anybody else. That's another big part of this. I know I'm really going down on this rabbit hole today, but I can't even stress to you. I'm seeing too much of people living in fear and people living in cognitive dissonance. I wrote this note here. There's a part of it with this cognitive dissonance where we're scared. And that would be normal, and that would be right, and it would be okay. But if we're scared, we're coming from a place of fear. And to be clear, when we're in fear, we're not thinking clearly. We're not thinking from logic. We're not thinking from reasoning, from deduction. We're coming from a place of, I just want to crawl into my hole and I just don't want to look. I don't want to go there. It's too scary. So what happens in that hole is you're scared. What happens in that hole is you're in a position to be manipulated. You're in a position where you are not coming from your conscious, you're coming from unconscious or unconscious consequences. So it's important to make those decisions for yourself that are based on your own reason, your own logic, your own ability to say, well, wait a minute, let me see what other people are saying. Like there's a huge team of doctors that have been working with people throughout this whole thing. It's America's frontline doctors. What do they say? These are the people that have been on the front line. Why are they saying something different? What is this Project Veritas? What are they saying? You don't have to believe it. You don't even have to go there. Just go in the CDC alone. Look at the stuff there. Look in VAERS, VAERS. Look in all these different things. Take some time and just look at what everybody is saying, and then make your own critical thinking, your own reason, your own logic. There's a lot of government papers that I've dug through in all of this. There's a whole bunch of information that when we look at it, there is our own logic and reasoning. So we step out of that cognitive dissonance. We step out of being afraid, of being, thinking that everybody just wants to take care of us. And you have to go in and look at, if we're all getting sick so much, there's something behind it. Like, I just want to say this, because it goes back to me being sick. And I don't say this very often, but I'm going to say it really loud and really clear. When I was sick, I didn't even go to a doctor. I went to Jeff, and right there at the top was my system, and it was my lymphatic system. And I had a client that came in. This was back when I was doing hair. And I had a client that came in, and this one was like, whoa, I'm going to go start chemotherapy tomorrow. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Because she seemed perfectly healthy. She seemed fine. She goes, no, I have lymphoma. And I was like, really? How do you know? And she goes, well, I have this puffy thing that's going on. And I was like, really? She says, yeah, I actually feel pretty good. My joints are a little achy, whatever. But, I was concerned about this puffy thing. And, I went to the doctor. So she started chemotherapy. And here's where cognitive dissonance comes in. This was back when I was the president of a holistic chamber of commerce. And I'm a hypnotherapist. And I'm doing hair. And I looked at her because she said, I really have this thing with sugar. And she goes, I know sugar feeds the cancer, but I really, really like sugar. And I looked at her and I said, you know that I'm a hypnotherapist, right? And I'm a president of a holistic chamber of commerce. I can help you with that if you're interested. She goes, no, I'm just going to do the chemotherapy. I really like the sugar. That's cognitive dissonance. That's that point of, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to really get how serious this is. And I'm just going to let somebody else take care of me. Well, for me, I got to thinking about it, and it's like, dang, you know what? Her symptoms sound like my symptoms. And I have this thing that pops up every now and again. If I get into a toxic environment, like when things are going on in the sky, this thing pops up and my body has to detox. And I know exactly when I've gotten into something because my body detoxes and I know it. But I went to Jeff rather than going to a doctor because there was a part of me that says, I've gone to doctors before and they haven't diagnosed me right. And I listened to a little voice in my head one time when I had this thing with my finger. I couldn't bend my finger. And I was on a high protein diet at the time. And they were saying, oh, you know what, you might have rheumatoid arthritis, or you might have, it was mainly rheumatoid arthritis. And so they tested me. I didn't have it. And then I hear a little voice in my head one day that said, calcium. So I take some calcium tablets that I had, and it didn't do anything. And then Nick hears voices all the time, right, Nick? But I usually don't. But this particular thing, I guess, was important because I heard A to B calm calcium. And it's this kind of calcium that comes in a powder with magnesium. So I listened. I took that in a cup of tea. And I swear to God, not 5 minutes later, I'm bending my finger where I couldn't bend it before. And I went back to that doctor and I said, just for future reference, because she thought it was rheumatoid arthritis. And then she was like, I don't know what it is. Just for future reference, if you have a client that comes in that's on a high protein diet and they're not taking enough calcium, it can look like rheumatoid arthritis. Well, she didn't like me telling her business. So that kind of, and there was other things that happened with doctors as well. And there was that part where I started to understand and learn there's other avenues out there for healing. There's other opportunities for my body to own its health. So long story short, the things that we're putting in our body, it's not always the best thing for our body. It's not always good for us, but there's an agenda behind it. So when we're taking things like glyphosate, aspartame, and different things, our body doesn't know what to do with that. And it can do things in our body like mutate the cells, which looks like cancer. So we're all so concerned about getting this other C. But nobody steps back and says, why are we allowed to eat so many toxins? Why do they put fluoride in the water? Fluoride is another toxic thing. Why are we allowed to do that? Why does that get put in our water? What does fluoride do? It literally calcifies the pineal gland, that part of us that really gets connected. We can talk about that a whole nother time. But when we're looking at everything and we're just accepting, and this is how it is, and I'm just going to eat McDonald's. Everybody watched that movie where the guy ate McDonald's and nearly died. There's a reason. So when we're in this kind of a moment and we have all this stuff that's going on and we're just blindly saying, oh, you know what? They're saying do this, I'm going to do it. You can do it. It's okay. Nothing wrong with doing it. But do it from a place of being educated. Do it from a place where you're looking at it and you're analyzing it. What is this? Am I looking at all the information or am I just looking at one thing? You're doing it from a place of being open-minded. Maybe there is another possibility here. Because I'm telling you, it's like for me, when I'm looking at this whole thing with that, you know what? It's like what they said is you get it and you won't have to wear a mask. Oh, but now you get it and you have to wear a mask. And actually, you can get it again, right? You can get it with having that. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And now there's this new version of it, which, from what I understand, they don't even have a test to say this is the new version. And the CDC literally just said recently that the version that they've had for testing us, they can't discern the difference between that and the flu, which is why they're changing it down in December. So it's like, well, how much of it when we were testing was the flu? How much of it was the thing? Again, critical thinking. Something's not adding up here. Something is not exactly right. And then when I'm watching all this other news and I'm looking at this news, it's like I have to weigh it all out. I have to look and find what's reasonable for me. What is that thing that creates for me? I can do this. And one thing I know I can do personally, I build the shit up out of my immune system. I mean, I know what exactly to do. I am a strong immune system. My body knows exactly what to do. And Kimberly, Dr. Kimberly, when she comes on, she's going to tell you what we did and what a lot of people that I know have done. It's called homeoprophylaxis. And it is, well, look it up. Do your research around it. There's, go to insideandoutnaturally.com and look what Kimberly shares about that. To be clear, in all this time, I haven't even had a cold. Not at all. I haven't been sick at all. I have had moments where I have had to deal with toxins, but that's a different kind of sick. I have actually been extremely healthy. So I don't worry. I'm not in fear. I'm not concerned. I was just in Tennessee, took a flight back and forth, didn't even think about it. I'm not worried about getting it. I know my immune system knows exactly what to do. It was born to do this, where we have this thing, our body recognizes this isn't exactly the best thing for us. So, in keeping a healthy body, our body knows how to fight it off. And if it's something big like that, you do a homeoprophylaxis. It's called HP. You know what? My body knew how to fight it off then. I take little boosters. I'm all good to go. But I wouldn't have done that if I had been in cognitive dissonance. I wouldn't have done that if I had just blindly followed whatever. So there's a point of it where I have to own that ability to do my own research. And when I say I'm digging into papers, my family there, I think I'm crazy sometimes because I just listen to a lot of stuff and I look at a lot of things. And what time is it? I'm not used to rattling on so much. Does anybody have any questions in there? No? Audie, what are you laughing about that? What's so funny? So I want to go back a little bit into something else that I wanted to discuss today. I've been going through a lot of papers at home, getting rid of things and, organizing because we have to fit another car in the garage and I had to make some space. And thank you, Nick, for helping me with that. But in finding these papers, I found this thing from a client. And this was some homework that I had them do. And honestly, I don't even remember who the client is because it was a very long time ago. But this is where critical thinking comes in. Thanks, Nick. Because I get it. He does, Nick is, when you talk about something being metaphysical, Nick, it's like he is so tuned in. It's like, if anything I'm worried about or I'm concerned about, I'll go to him and, Nick, is this going to be okay? He goes, yes, yes. And it's an instant reassurance because if it's not going to be okay, I know he's going to tell me. He knows I want to know. And every single time it's been okay. So with all the things that are going on now, I just want you to know, I looked at him the other day because it's like a lot. I mean, there's a lot that's going on and nobody knows. Well, not nobody. A lot of people have no idea. There's a lot that's going on and our lives are changing greatly. And so I asked Nick the other day, it's like, Nick, is this all going to be okay? And he's like, yes. And Merlin says it's all going to be okay. And it's actually going to be really, really, really good. But we all have to get out of just being, unconscious, being afraid, being worried, just following blindly whatever we're like told to do. And we need to do our own critical thinking. And if it means that you have to do what everybody's doing, you do it and you own it and you be confident with it and you be confident that it's working. But you do it and not be blaming anybody else and shaming anybody else or doing all of that. That goes into the fear feelings. So it's really important to own all of it at this point. And when Nick says it's all going to be okay, I got to trust it. he's a connection to that higher source. And Nick and Golden Arrow both said it the other night. It's all good. And it's a really great moment in time where there's so many things that we have been unaware that have been to our detriment that are changing and life is getting much, much better. Really. So we got to own that. You got to own it in your heart. You got to own it in your mind. And you got to own it in those actions that we take and be very confident in going in the direction of what that is, what's your intention. So this thing that I found, this piece of paper, it was this client and they wrote down their challenges. And I want to just say a few of them. A challenge with keeping the mind clear. A challenge with how can I pay my medical bills? How to pay for college? I have to apply for financial aid and to look at different things. How to do all of this without my chronic pains flaring up? How do I keep a relationship with one of my parents? Keeping myself centered despite what feels like madness. Not binging on anything from drugs to sex. I call it the 5 S's. Snorting, smoking, sleeping, sexing, shopping, or food binges. But food didn't fit into my, I don't even know what that means, my scheme. So when people bring me these things, this is the unconscious thinking. These are the fear. This is definitely the challenges. And when you're doing that critical thinking, there's a part where you say, why am I having a struggle keeping my mind clear? What is that? So you're questioning it. You're looking at it with analysis, interpretation, explanation. You're getting to that self realization. You're problem solving. So there's a part of it for all of us where we get caught up in our unconscious thinking. We get caught up in our fear where we're not even thinking at all. That's that cognitive dissonance. I don't want to go there. I don't want to believe that that could be happening. I don't want to believe that anybody would do something horrible to another person. I don't want to go there. I don't want to look at it. But you're holding it in. You're looking at it and you're coming from a place of fear anyway. So better to look at it with that critical mind and say, all right, like I do. And I'm telling you, I went through some dark moments with all of this. And in those dark moments, I had to really step back and say, the great thing is, all of this is coming to the surface. It's changing. We're owning our ability to wake up, to do this critical thinking, to come from that place of logic and reason and deduction, and to make conscious choices, not coming from a place of fear. So, my invitation for everybody in these last 11 minutes is to look at your own life. Is there anything that you're in fear about? Is there anything that you're anxious about? Is there anything that in the moment you're fine, but you're worried about something happening with this beautiful body? Are you worried about something happening with your finances? Worried about something happening with your love? Or just simply, are you depressed? Is there a part of it where you have gotten into the habit of being stuck with all of the stuff that's going on? I've had a few clients that have come in, and I'm telling you, everything's good in their life on a lot of levels, but they have gotten into the habit of being depressed because they were isolated. They were worried, they were anxious, or whatever that thing is. So unconsciously, we get into, oh, life is just not great. In reality, there's a lot about life that is great. So when you recognize, what am I thinking here that's not so great? Like this person, this one thing, keeping myself centered despite what feels like madness. That's a huge one for everybody right now. There's so much. And if you haven't noticed, I mean, if you haven't looked, there's protests that are going on across the world. There's some crazy stuff that's going on in Australia, I mean, just all across the world, where people are experiencing things that we just, whoa, I can't even imagine. And thank God it's not happening here. It doesn't mean that it couldn't happen here. So there is this moment right now where we all have to really own that critical thinking and say, what actually is going on? I want to be aware. I want to see it. I want to look at everything. And it could be that you land right where you are on all of your beliefs and you've done everything exactly as you want to. And that's good. And there's some people that it's like, you know what, maybe I want to do something different from this point forward. And that's good too. It's all okay. But when you're living in madness, when you're living isolated, when you're living in the habit of, being afraid or anxious or angry, then it's not. We weren't supposed to come into these lifetimes. You only have this one time here. And we came in to work through these challenges and to recognize what's going on, to recognize our ability to work through these things. And I'm just going to say, I'm not, I'm like a poster child for this. I lived a lot of my life in crazy ass moments, a lot of my life unconscious, following along, just thinking everything is like this is all okay until it wasn't, until I got sick. And I'm like, why am I so sick? Oh, because I'm a toxic wasteland. And then I had to wake myself up and I had to recognize it's all still okay. But now I have to change my habits. I have to change my mind. I have to own what I'm feeling. And I have to do specific things with my body to keep it healthy and to get it healthier and healthier. Because be clear, I'm almost 59. When I was 50, I was much more ill than I am now. And I've had many clients who think, oh, you know what, this is just part of getting old. Like I thought. I thought, oh God, this menopause is like a nightmare. It wasn't menopause. It was toxic stuff in my system causing a lot of pain. So when you are able to look at it with logic, with reasoning, and wake up to what's going on, like I had to wake up, then you are in a position to make intentional choices. You're able to say, oh, I get it. So I guess I'm not going to eat those Cheez-Its anymore. And I'm going to focus on eating organic, healthy vegetables. I'm going to eat my Eloise salad. I'm going to eat these things that are organic because I can't be putting any more toxins in my system. It's too much. So look at your own life. Be introspective. When you're looking at it, don't look with any judgment. We all just did what we did with the consciousness that we've had at the time. Like I was a mess. I mean, I can't even tell you I was massively unconscious. And it wasn't just the toxins that I was ingesting, it was also my belief systems around drinking. I drank too much. I didn't realize. And I remember being very young and thinking, oh, you know what? It's fine. My body will just do whatever. So I'd have these hangovers that were massive and think, oh, you know what? I guess I'll just have to get over this, not realizing what it was doing to my body, what it was doing to my mind and my emotional health. So it's all connected. So at this point, you make choices based on what is going to bring you those levels of love, happiness, great health, success, abundance. What are those things? So if you have anything that looks unlike what you want, be brave. Look at it and then go about the business of changing it. It's a process, doesn't usually change overnight. So own the process of it. I have 5 more minutes. What else do I need to say? Oh, I did something the other day. This is it, because I'm telling you, I am looking at my own self all the time because to be clear, I used to have a belief system. I know many of you have heard this before. I used to have a belief about me in the unconscious down here. When I was in my 0 to 8 program, my mother would be like, she's cute, but she's not that smart. And she literally called me the dumb one. And I didn't know any different. I'm just cute and I'm not that smart. So I had this as my program for a very, very long time. And then when I got not cute for a period, it was like really bad. I turned into quite the brat, I think. And so when I finally understood what my intelligence is, everything changed. And that was a huge one. When I understood my worth, that was a big one. And now when I have something that's going on, I have to step back and be like, what's going on here? Why am I doing that doesn't serve me? So there's this thing that I have with my clients. They buy a package and it's 5 sessions and they pay me for the 5 sessions up front. And then it's my job to keep track of those sessions. And this one girl, God bless her, love you, and you know who you are. She was like, Audrey, I'm not clear on where we are with our sessions. Do I need to pay you? And I was like, dang, you know what? I do that too much. Why do I do that? I don't write the numbers in the book. And I pondered it and I was like, oh shit, I know what it is. And I called her, or I told her, call me. I got a little quick story for you. And I explained to her, you got me thinking, why do I do that? It's an unconscious thing. I'm not collecting my money for working. And I told her I was pondering it because that's what we do. You look at the fear. What is this thing? Is it something in the 0 to 8? Is it an experience? What is the thing? And I caught myself, and I had been saying to people, you know what? I own this new affirmation along the way. I'm working less, I'm making more money, and I'm having more fun. And I tell people this, what I do, it doesn't feel like work. And there it was. If I'm not working, I don't really need to get paid. And then I was like, well, yes, I do. So I need to change that belief. So now I'm owning my worth in yet another way. So it looks as simple as that, and it's as little as that, and it can be as big as the health of your life, which is one of the biggest things. Remember, you're the most important thing. You are the most important thing, as Golden Arrow told me years ago. If you're not the most important thing, then nothing else matters. So when you have these beliefs, when you have these things that create those fear feelings, stop. Look at them with no judgment. It's compassion. You learned it. You learned it along the way. It's all right. You didn't do anything wrong, didn't do anything bad. You just be in the moment of the choice point now, and you realign. Look with critical thinking. Look at new information. Come from a broader perspective and make those adjustments. No judgment. Hey, I got a minute. So in this last minute, please join Nick and I on Mainstream Metaphysics next Tuesday night and take a look at our website, newmontcenter.net. We have a calendar in there. We're going to be creating a few more things coming up in the next few days. And take care of yourself, take care of each other, come from a place of love and light, and know that this is all working with divine right action taking place. We're all moving to a better place, and it's good, and it's going to be even better, as Miss Beckalicious would say, and Ed. So with that, I love you all, and have a great week, and I'll be back here next Thursday night, probably with a much lighter subject. And I'll see you then.